my name's Libby Powell. I'm the founder of Radar. Radar runs a communications hub for those who live off the electric grid or live in communities that are excluded from decision making or public dialogue. We believe that everybody has the right to speak and be heard. When citizens cannot share news or opinions effectively, democracy is diluted and development is stunted. Corruption goes unnoticed and innovation goes undocumented. Particularly women and girls across the world are excluded from the media, both as professionals or as sources of news. It's a very male-led sector, and this can lead to huge gaps in public understanding, particularly about issues that affect women and girls. That said, we don't just want female reporters to be reporting on gender issues. We need women's voices about agriculture, economy, trade, sport, culture and industry. And the good news is that we've never had a more open playing field for the production of news. Citizen journalism is on the rise, and by citizen journalism we essentially mean the production of news and media by anyone who doesn't have a formal qualification and who lives embedded in the communities where the news is happening and affecting people. As the tools for capturing media and news have become more effective and more affordable, such as mobile phones, citizen journalists and community reporters have increasingly become a really important source of news for mainstream media agencies and NGOs. We now have the position where as a citizen journalist you can act as a crucial gap filler, a link really between your community and the international public audience. At Radar we offer training and editorial support to make sure that your voices actually translate into read and shareable media. We can really help to form a link between the world that you're seeing and the world that people are seeing online every day. For some, the training that we deliver and the support we give can help act as a stepping stone for employment, and many of those that we've trained have gone on to work as paid freelancers and media professionals. And for others, it's just that crucial extra link that they need to become a more effective advocate for change. Everyone in their own community understands what the community needs better than somebody sitting in Nairobi or New York. So we need to help you find a way to capture those stories and issues and effectively translate them out into media that's understandable to the general public. By working with those around you to document the news and perspectives, you can really create a really crucial record of issues that otherwise would have gone hidden. But how do you get started?
My name is Corin Fife and I'm the Digital Platforms Manager at Radar, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit about using mobile as a tool for storytelling. The first point is that although I know you're all writers, as media becomes increasingly digitized, the boundaries between writing, audio, media and different formats are becoming increasingly blurred. And an ability to take advantage of those different formats is going to be a huge benefit for you. So my first piece of advice would be experiment as much as you can, because a lot of the tools that you need to create media across different formats are either free or very low cost. And just like with any skill, practice makes perfect. So take advantage of that and practice as much as you can. The second point I'd like to make is that with social media, as well as digital media, the storyteller is increasingly becoming a part of the story. And that's a trend you've seen in some journalism since maybe the 1960s, 1970s. You had Hunter S. Thompson, Tom Wolfe, the new journalism in that school. They were the first people to do it, and at the time it was a very unusual thing. And now it's becoming more and more common, where as a reporter of any kind and a storyteller, talking about the process through which you're gathering the story and keeping people updated regularly with different points about where you're at with current investigations, where you hope things would go, your thoughts on stories as they unfold, is what's expected of a modern journalist or advocate, and the ability to connect with an audience like that and build up an emotional link between yourself as a person and the stories that you're telling is a huge asset. The final thing is that although that might sound daunting, particularly if you're not already immersed in the digital world, at the end of the day, as storytelling platforms become more and more diverse, the ability to tell a good story becomes ever more crucial. The demand for stories is not going to go away, but maybe increasingly the format that we tell them in will change. But the principles of having a solid exposition, of being able to create good characters, whether in fiction or non-fiction, and being able to link cause and effect in a way that's clear for the audience and to resolve things in a way which is logical, are very much key skills, whether in text, video, or even through photography. So learn to tell a good story, and worry about the format, as and when it comes. Those are the tips that I have, and now I'm going to pass you on to my colleague to talk about how to research those stories.
Hi, my name's Paul and I'm the editorial lead at Radar. My job is to work with reporters to help to develop their stories and make them as strong as possible. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the processes we have in deciding which stories we're going to develop and how we would do it. So we have a checklist which we work against to see whether a story is likely to be an interesting story, and to see how we can push it to make it as strong as possible. So there are many things which may be interesting to you as citizens or professionals or as community members, but that does not necessarily mean that to the rest of the population, to the rest of your audience, it's going to be an interesting story. So we like to use these 4 main points to check against. And the first one of these points, so we've got NEWS, which spells news. And so the first one of these points is that a story should be new in some way. Now that doesn't mean that it has to be completely unreported, but just that we can find a new angle or a fresh angle on this story, a new way of making this interesting. So a recent example is the Ebola crisis in West Africa, which has been reported by almost all major news outlets, but we had a reporter in Sierra Leone in the northeast corner at the epicenter of where it happened, and what he had, which many other journalists didn't have, is direct access to the community which was most affected by this issue. He could speak to business traders who were losing their business due to a lack of movement. He could speak to border officials who'd had to close borders and control the flow of the population, and he could speak directly to families who'd been affected and suffered from lost lives due to the Ebola crisis. So what he had was a new and fresh angle about what it was like to live at the epicenter of this crisis. And the next is E for energetic, and one project we're working on at the moment is on slavery in India and child labour, and we've read some recent stories which involve the rescue of children from who are being trafficked. Now, this story with the arrests of the traffickers, the rescue of children, them being reunited with their family, is full of energy, it's full of interest. And by using this moment, by using this storytelling, we also get to learn about the law and the criminality of trafficking through the arrests, the emotion and the suffering of the children and their families through the way they're being reunited, and the way that campaigners and advocates who've helped to make this, to provide the intelligence to make this rescue possible, about the excellent work they do. So this is a good example of making a sad and tragic tale energetic and positive, and giving the story somewhere to go where things are happening and events are unfolding, and it's exciting for the reader despite the tragic subject matter. The W is for worthy of public attention, and this one's important there are many issues which, maybe for people who grew up in our community, our friends and family, would be, you know, would be humorous or fascinating for us, or perhaps as professionals or campaigners would be really interesting for us and our colleagues. But that does not necessarily mean that for the rest of the population or the rest of the audience of our work that this is an interesting story. So for this we really have to think about our audience carefully, and we have to try and find ways of linking the story back to them. So again, using the example of slavery in India, there are stories recently which have managed to link some of the conditions going on in India back to major companies in the UK, and the working conditions, the exploitative working conditions which they are using. And this is a way of linking this issue back to the UK and back to the UK consumer. And so it's important to think, why should the audience care? Why should people care? And how can we make them care? How can we link this back to their everyday lives? The final point is S, and S is for solid facts. This is a basic tenet of all good journalism, and we need to get things right in order that our reader or our viewers or our listeners trust what we're telling them. So we need to check who is telling us this bit of information. Does this source have something? Do they have a vested interest, for example? Are the statistics we're getting from a reliable or well-known professional or a reliable, well-known organisation? Are other people backing up the story that our source has told us, or does it not seem to fit in with some other people? And so I think that if we're looking at a story idea and we have all four of these points looking good, then we know that we're onto a strong story, and a story that's definitely worth pursuing. So once you have those things in place, then then all is set to go about your research and to go and get your story published. So good luck.